Day 1, November 2009, first day of Performa '09, began with a lot of excitement. Went down to the Performa Hub. It's our very first on-the-street space, a biennial headquarters, place to meet, place to hang out. And it's been built in 5 days. I am so proud of our incredible team. It's our first Performa Architecture Commission. We invited a young architecture group in Berlin called N Office to create a hub for us. And miraculously, about a month ago, Cooper Union offered us their retail ground floor space on 3rd Avenue and Cooper Square. It is 3,000 square feet. It's all glass. It's fabulous. And the design went up very, very fast, and the interior build-out went very fast. And the requirements were an instant amphitheater with a small performance space, a place for recording, video and radio, a little gallery, a bookstore, an information center, and it's all there. It's a miracle. So I'm very excited. Another instant Performa pop-up shop in a way, but really the beginning of our big push to incorporate architecture into Performa. So we now can announce a new department, if you want, but integrated into the entire Performa concept, that there will indeed be an architecture biennial within this wonderful biennial of visual art. So went off to PS1, beautiful day, lovely sunny day, to this marvelous old schoolhouse, which is why it's called PS1, and to the 3rd floor where this amazing exhibition, 100 Years, which is a living exhibition. It really is. It's an exhibition in a way that's a documentary exhibition. It takes the theme of Performa, which an underlying theme this year, which is the 100th anniversary of the Futurist, the launch of Futurism in 1909. So here we are 100 years later, and it's the year really that I begin the discussion about the history of performance art, which was the starting point for my book, which came out actually 30 years ago, was first published in 1979, and the book is called Performance Art from Futurism to the Present. So this exhibition at PS1 takes that 100-year timeline, and in a very inventive way, really, it's a marvelous exhibition for scholars, for students, for people who are very intrigued by how important performance has been in the history of 20th century art and culture. And there you can actually go and see everything from wonderful film, from movies from the early 20s, with Fernand Léger, with Picabia, a marvelous film also from the early 20s with Mary Wigman, another with Martha Graham, and extraordinary documentation throughout the century, year by year. It's all there for you to see and to go back and see over and over again, because we will be changing, updating different parts of the exhibition. It's really fantastic, and I was absolutely thrilled to see it realized at PS1 in this very special way. So then from PS1, back in the car, we drove over the 59th Street Bridge, which also, by the way, celebrates its 100th anniversary this year, so a lot of anniversaries, and off to MoMA. And what was fun there, arriving on 53rd Street, was to discover quite a crowd waiting outside. A sold-out evening for Fischerspooner. Once we got in the door, up to the 2nd floor, and there was this glorious performance by Casey Spooner. A really terrific evening, inventive, up on a great platform in the huge exhibition hall on the 2nd floor of MoMA, with wonderfully done, where you could actually move around the platform where the artists were performing, and really sort of be both backstage and front stage within the same space. So really, by just circling yourself around this main central space, you could see the performers backstage getting dressed, looking in mirrors, checking themselves out, warming up, and front stage literally just on the other side of a screen, and this movement back and forth. Wonderful day of Performa '09 ended this evening in Times Square with Arto Lindsay's extraordinary parade, moving from 47th Street down to 40th Street. Took over an hour and a half to get there. It was fantastic. What was great was watching the public, lots of unsuspecting people responding to this very simple and sedate and beautiful procession of 50 people in a line. Arto Lindsay, wonderful, originally Brazilian composer, has done several pieces that he's worked on, street theater, street processions, in a sense, I guess, taken from, in my mind anyway, taken from the Brazilian, the carnival march, the carnival fantasies that he's probably grown up with. Although when I asked him, I said, what does this have to do with Brazil? He said, absolutely nothing. It has everything to do with New York, which I think is a very, very important part of this entire Performa festival, is to invite artists to create works about this city and about the people in the city. So for Arto, what he did was really simplify this idea of the procession. I mean, we've seen the Macy's Day Parade, we've seen the Puerto Rican Parade, we've seen lots of different parades that go on in this town, but this was a parade all on its own, because really what Arto said was that he wanted a parade that draws people in and has them follow behind the performers, rather than a parade where you're kind of just standing passively by and you watch the spectacle move down, you know, Fifth Avenue, and you're kind of just left gaping after the performers. In this case, we literally all were running alongside the performers, dressed very, very sweetly in these little trench coats, little khaki trench coats, and choreographed to work in this very systematic way, doing everyday gestures, really sort of a mix between a march and a walk and a leap and a hop, and gestures again that were very much about the kinds of sort of saluting or you know, everyday kind of conversational gestures that you would use. So the choreography, very simple, and what was so remarkable was the simplicity of this production. As Arto said, he wanted it to bring people into the piece, to have them follow the performers rather than watch a spectacle, but above all, how to create something that was so simple and so quiet in this very noisy environment. The noise of 42nd Street, the noise of Times Square, the visual noise, the cacophony of sound and image that really makes up Times Square. And suddenly you had this delicate, in a sense, this very quiet procession of 50 figures, one behind the other, and listening attentively, quietly to their cell phones. And yet again, surprisingly, I was surprised at how much noise those cell phones made. We could actually hear the hubbub and the rhythm that came out of these cell phones. Very quietly, at the very end of over an hour and a half of watching these different shapes and that the group made as they move forward. Also watching a lot of kids from the sidelines and people hopping in and joining in and kind of improvising their own, or pulling out their own cell phones and hopping behind the dancers. At the very end, they all arrived at 40th Street and quietly put their still clicking rhythmic cell phones into one large pile in the street. And after a few minutes, one of the assistants quietly turned off each cell phone. That's the end of day one for Performa 09. Thanks for being there. Good night.